Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Charlie and Cara Show. We're so happy to have you here and just keep diving into all this amazing, deep and profound and messy work, but you know, make it light and really just enjoy the process as much as we can. And yeah, this week's episode is actually all about fear and anxiety. So last week we had limiting beliefs, and hopefully you've made some good progress since the last episode. And now we'd like to just dive into what fear and anxiety is, where it stems from, how we can actually overcome it or sit with it, and just how we can manage it better. Because obviously, if you're anything like me, super anxious sometimes, it can dominate your day and it's a horrible feeling. It's really, really not a comfortable feeling to just carry around anxiety and, you know, living in fear, because it dictates how we enjoy our day. And so really great to overcome that. So yeah, Cara, what do you have to say about fears and anxieties?
So many things. I'm like a recovered anxious person.
Yeah.
Used to be so negative, fearful, and living in anxiety. And I know with so many different experiences, really feeling like there was no way out. I think that was my default for a long time. And it wasn't until like maybe 20 years old where I started to be like, wait a minute, I don't think I have to feel this way. It just felt so normal.
Yeah.
So I have so much to say on this topic. I'm really excited about
it. Go for it. Can't wait to hear it. Need all the help in the world right now that we can get. So yeah, this should be really helpful for a lot of people, because most of the population, especially in this day and age and with everything going on this year, it is definitely quite an anxious, fearful, uncertain year. So it's a good time to uncover some things. Yeah, exactly. So I guess one area we can start in, and then we can kind of dive down through there. I would love to share super quickly about fight or flight and kind of how that affects us, because that is the premise of what we feel when we're in anxiety or fear. Yeah.
So that's really, you look at our survival instincts, and that's where anxiety and fear comes from, is that need to survive. So if we feel threatened or up against something that's unsafe or scary or uncertain, then our body goes into fight or flight mode, like it would have in the days of the cavemen, right? And like there's a saber-toothed tiger, and you've either got to fight it off or run faster to get away from it. So your body goes into this physiological response, and all of your energy and focus is on that survival. Now, the problem is when we get into that place, it's so easy for our thoughts to just continue going further and further into that, and our body responds in an anxious way, which then sends more signals to the brain that things are wrong, so then you feel more fear and anxiety.
So
and
it's
then it
completely
sends more to
cyclical.
your body. Yes, exactly. And it's such a dangerous place to get stuck in, for obvious reasons, I guess.
And it's super painful. I can't stand anxiety. I would love some help and tools into how we can like breathe through it, or how we can actually get rid of it. I don't even know if that's possible. I'll start sharing. Yes. I mean, if you can help us manage or overcome or get rid of anxiety, I know that you can't just fix everything overnight, but
yeah, I wish we could. But
I wish we could. This feeling is a real nightmare.
Yeah. I think so. There's multiple things that helped me. Obviously, meditation and breath work, which I think when you are anxious, meditation feels so difficult, because you're like, how on earth would I even quiet my mind right now?
Yeah, and sitting with that feeling feels so uncomfortable. That's why a lot of us distract ourselves when we've got anxiety, even though it doesn't make any difference, and you're just going through the motions with anxiety. But the thought of sitting down, just sitting with it, is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's heavy. It brings up more anxiety, I think, to sit there.
Yeah, it's like, get me out of this right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where breath work could be really powerful. Anything that helps you get into the body. So anxiety is obviously bringing you into the mind and up into this hypothetical area where all these scenarios are playing out, and you want to ground yourself and come back into the present moment, into your body. So deep breaths where you're maybe counting, like a lot of people talk about, I believe it's like called square breathing even, where you're doing like 4-second inhale, holding for 4 seconds, 4-second exhale.
I do find that helps actually. Especially
You've done that? Yeah.
I've done it where you put is it the thumb over the, I mean, I've probably done it wrong.
You can do that too.
But it's just holding my nostril and breathing in through one. That feels so much like super soothing.
That's a beautiful one. I'm so glad you shared that.
Well, I mean, I can't like say it's totally worked, but it does make me feel calmer.
Yeah. That was one I learned in India actually. So you could have, like for everyone listening, pressing your thumb on one of your nostrils, and so you're just breathing in through one side and then switching, and then you can exhale through the other.
Yeah, it does feel good.
And then inhale and then switch. And so that actually on an even deeper level helps to balance like your masculine and feminine as well. So it really creates this centered balance within you.
Yeah.
As well as just giving your body the chance to relax, because when we're in anxiety, you probably notice that your heartbeat starts to race, and the more shortened your breathing is, the faster that heartbeat is as well.
Yeah, and you feel shaky and just super restless, nervous energy, right? It's like this trapped nervous energy.
Yeah, exactly. So the breathing and slowing that down helps to slow down your heartbeat, which then can also send all those signals of like, okay, I'm actually safe right now. Maybe there is still something that's causing your stress, and it obviously doesn't magically solve the problem, but you're able to relax your body and your mind into a state where you can actually like think more clearly and take better action towards fixing it.
Yeah, take action steps, be like pragmatic, a bit more logical rather than like getting carried away with the thoughts. So in a scenario where, well, first of all, how does this relate to thoughts? Because my belief is, I've noticed whenever I get super anxious, whatever it's about, if I change my thoughts, I can definitely change some of my anxiety. If I tell myself, you know what, this is totally meant to be this way, it's all going to work out, or whatever I tell myself, sometimes my body believes it, and then I do feel better. Other times it doesn't matter what I tell myself, I'm ridden with anxiety. So like, can you just give a bit of information around the thoughts that are stimulating the anxiety and how we can cope with that better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're always listening. Your body is always listening to your thoughts. So if you're telling the negative stories or fueling that, then you're creating more of that for yourself and then experiencing more of it, right? But if you can shift to everything's going to be okay, like things are actually working out for me, or finding some kind of silver lining, then obviously that's immediately going to help you slowly shift your perspective and feel less in that panic.
Freaking out.
Yeah.
It's straight up panic.
Yeah.
So then a lot of that is because we're dwelling on the past, or concerned about the future, or trying to control the future.
We're not in the present.
It's not gone according to plan. Oh my God, it's all out of my control, or I've just had this loss, or whatever it is. So how can we, obviously the future is something we all think about, and we do care about it. We can't just eradicate the future, but how can we manage that better with all the fears of the future?
Yeah, so I'm one of those people who reads a lot of amazing quotes, but I can never actually re-quote them back to people. So my head's like, oh,
give it a go.
This great quote.
Give it a go.
And I'm like, what is it actually? But there is that. Oh, well, there's a lot of them actually, but that one about, the present is the gift. That's all we have, and that's why it's called the present. So bringing yourself into that present moment, because when you get to your future goal, if things, you're stressing about a career or something, and you're so focused on your future, you're missing out on every single opportunity or experience that's happening now. And whether you get to that point or not, you're not enjoying the process, and then you're always going to have that next goal or marker.
So you'll never, if you don't learn to be present, you'll never ever be, whatever the moving target is, you'll never be happy when you get there, because your brain is operating on
Future.
next thing. Oh,
and then that is where a lot of anxiety comes from, because we're trying to control or force things that we can't foresee. We don't know if that's going to actually play out or work for us, or if it's doable, possible, any of that stuff. We're so focused on it and stressed. And a lot of times for myself, I notice that if I'm too focused on the future, I also create a lot of pressure, which then obviously creates more anxiety as well. And I'm making this situation more difficult for myself than if I can just step back and be super present and really trust that, like, oh, this career is meant for me. So of course it's going to happen, but what can I do right now to just make my steps toward it from ease and joy and flow,
an enjoyable state rather than panicky,
versus the pressure and like I have to make this happen now, and the fear of what if I can't do this.
It all stems back down to control though, doesn't it? Because if we were just one of those people, I mean, I often admire, I have some friends and acquaintances that are very much like, they're fully in the moment. They don't mind or have these ridiculous goals or attachments to their goals. They're kind of like, you know what, they truly are, whatever happens, full surrender. And I admire them, because I am the opposite. I really want to learn how to surrender more, and that's going to be another episode down the line. But my question to you was going to be, and for any of you that are the same as me, I feel really uncomfortable in the present moment sometimes. Like I can't, it's like I'm doing anything but be in it. I'll do everything to distract myself if I'm not in a good place. So if I'm really happy, I'll take it in more. But if it's, oh, I'm feeling this inside, or I'm feeling lonely, or I'm going through pain or anything that's uncomfortable, I do not like the present, because it means I have to sit still and feel the feelings. And I don't like the feelings of pain. I do avoid it at all costs, which is my huge lesson at the moment, is you cannot go around it, you cannot avoid it, you have to go through it. But what would you say to those of us that genuinely feel uncomfortable in the present, when it feels like, when it feels horrible? Sitting with your pain. I hate it.
I know. I feel like my answer isn't going to be like exciting for everyone listening, because I'm just going to say that there is power in sitting with it, and the more we avoid it, I mean, that leads to more suffering. That's why addictions are created, you know, unhealthy habits. That's even social media is such a great distraction, where it takes our mind off our actual life and immerses us in this fantasy or this quick fix, this escape, and yet that can lead to more anxiety, because then we're comparing or feeling inadequate.
And you're constantly getting used to going outside of yourself again. So just more avoidance, and less peace within.
And I think one of the best fixes for anxiety, like I said before, in terms of grounding, it is coming back to your physical self. So it's getting out of the mind and the clouds and all of the thoughts, and getting into your physical body. So movement, breath work, anything, a tool that really helps me. I had a lot of depersonalization and like feeling disassociated with my body, because I had a really traumatic car accident where I had an out-of-body experience. So I had a lot of trouble grounding after that, and a lot of anxiety.
Wow, yeah.
And what helped me was having a ring, almost like from the movie Inception, having a ring or a bracelet, like a token that physically brings me back into the present moment. So when I found myself in anxiety or like really feeling like disconnected, you know, putting my finger or my thumb on my ring and spinning it to really feel, and focusing all my attention on that sensation to bring me back into my body. So different things, that dance or breathing, movement, yoga, going to the gym, anything where you're actually physically present, and then you can try to train your brain to focus on those physical sensations instead of just the mental clutter. Can bring you back in. So sometimes it's sitting with the emotion, to answer your question. Sometimes it is sitting with it, but other times it's like translating that energy into something physical so you can move through it and clear it out instead of just having it up there.
Yeah, because the more we try and avoid it and think our way through it, which is what I've done my whole life, the resistance is there, and the more you're kind of going to be stuck in it because you aren't processing it, you aren't sitting with it. Okay, so something else around this, when it comes to like things that we're concerned around the future, the only reason we would have all of this pain, or if something doesn't go away, is because we're attached to it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a bit confused with the whole attachment thing, because on the one hand, if I start detaching from things, I know that I won't have as much suffering because I won't feel the disappointment. I won't have gone romanticized the entire career or the man or the dream in my head, and therefore there's nothing to lose. However, I don't want to just go around from now on being like, I'm not going to get attached and like ruthless and disconnected just to protect myself. And I just find that a really difficult part. It's like, if you do get attached, you're asking for trouble, in terms of you're asking for suffering eventually when it goes wrong.
Yeah, it's like such a delicate balance.
Oh, it's so tough.
Yeah.
Life is so tough sometimes.
What an interesting experience, eh? Like,
yeah, it really is.
I think it comes down to the balance between just trying to get into a place where you're as present as possible, you're as aware of what you're experiencing and like the reality of it. Like, sometimes with fear and anxiety, it's false, right? False evidence appearing real. It's not even true. A lot of times it's stuff that isn't even going to happen.
You've made it up in your head and you're convinced it's true.
Yeah, you're just playing that story. It's becoming so strong, you're convinced. So if you're able to bring yourself back and to create awareness of like, is this just a story? Am I just telling myself a story right now? All this anxiety and these emotions that are coming up, how much of it is truth and how much of it is the story, right? So maybe there is truth that you're stressed about your career, but how much of the extra anxiety is just potential outcomes and scenarios and things that are taking you further off your path? And how can you come back to the truth of, okay, I'm stressed about my career, but if I ground myself and remain in the present, I actually have the clarity and all the mental space and energy to say, here are the options that I can take. Like, I can start looking elsewhere. I can do this. I have these skills that are actually really needed right now.
I can take this course.
I can do this. Yeah. All of a sudden, when you're out of anxiety, you can see the bigger picture. A perfect way I like to think of it too is if you think of a funnel or like an upside down triangle. And when you're in fear, anxiety, or any of those low vibration emotions, it's very narrow. Like, you can't see much else. You're so stuck in that place.
So stuck in it.
Yeah. And when you're able to get yourself back up just into a more clear space or present moment, you suddenly see, hey,
perspective opens up.
Yeah, there are more options. You can see more clearly. You're no longer shining the flashlight at like a dark corner. You're seeing the whole room. And you're like, hey, there is a door. There is something here that can help me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think to add to that, as I'm just listening to you, once again, it comes back down to trusting that everything is happening for you.
Yeah.
And that even if it's painful or totally not what you planned and just like, just a disaster, you have to just trust. That's such a much more peaceful way of existing, is if you trust, no matter how uncomfortable this is happening for me. There is a lesson in this, and in the long run I will look back at this and take the silver linings and be like, wow, what a blessing that was in the end. But reminding ourselves of that as we're going through the pain is just remember that it doesn't feel like it right now, but this is how it's meant to be. Yeah. And that takes work, like really. Definitely. And a huge part.
Yeah, a lot of consistency. And I think it is about catching your thoughts and every day just trying to be a tiny bit better. So your anxiety tomorrow might be very strong, but catching it as soon as you possibly can and, reframing or regrounding yourself first, getting into the body. And then from there, you have a bit more clarity to see, okay, what can I take from this? Or how is this actually serving me?
How can I make it work for me? How can I flip it? Yeah. So when you mentioned reframing, will you just give us a quick bit of I know you've mentioned it before. What's an example right now of when we wake up, we've got horrendous anxiety, it's all out of our control. We're worried about a parent or something to do with health, or again, a breakup, a fear of loss. How can we manage that? How can we reframe it so that it works for us?
Yeah. So even the example you gave is perfect, and it can be used very generally of, this is actually serving a higher purpose for me. And so instead of feeling crazy anxious about all the things that you think are going wrong or that are causing problems in your life,
rejection or abandonment, whatever it is,
it's like reframing it into something that makes you feel a little bit more empowered and maybe a little bit more in control, or just a little bit more in a place of trusting that you are still divinely supported or guided. And so it's like, this isn't ideal, but this is happening for me, not to me. This is teaching me XYZ.
I need to go through this in order to learn this, which is going to set me up for that in life.
Finding the lesson, and also realizing that once you do find the lesson, you can move through it. So that's my biggest thing, is like, if you can learn it and shift it now, then when something like that happens in a week or a few weeks or a month or a year, you
got
feel
it
more
covered.
equipped. You're like,
You're like, I've done this before.
I know how to get through this because I went through it in the past. And so that's where all of these struggles and panic attacks or anxious moments are actually serving us, because they're conducive to our growth. We will look back on them one day and be like, wow, that was horrible in the time, but look at where I am now. And I wouldn't have gotten here without them.
And so if we are going to have any future thoughts, at least make them good, right? So like, if we're going to start fantasizing over the future, remind ourselves that one day this will pass, this too shall pass, and we will feel like we'll see the blessing eventually. And just remembering that, rather than like, oh my God, it's all out of my control, it's all gone wrong. So just choosing those positive thoughts.
Exactly. Paying attention to where you're putting your energy always. So again, it might not switch immediately, but you just try and make those baby steps every day to get yourself a little bit more in control, a little bit more out of your head. And I think as well, as you practice more gratitude and you do stay present and see like, oh, this thing happened today that was really positive, it helps take away from some of the power of the stress or the anxiety, and over time will allow you to really see like, there are so many blessings, there is so much beauty, there is all this stuff going on around you, aside from the anxiety.
And just making it work for us. Okay, so just to wrap that up, the other thing as well is, I personally, and I'm sure lots of you do, tend to want to just talk it through, or oh my God, I want someone to be in this with me, or like, I can't stand being on my own, in my own head right now, it's terrifying, it's painful, I just need to distract, right? Like we mentioned earlier. So bringing that full circle and back into relating it to self-love and nurturing ourselves and being there for us, what are some things that we can do when we are anxious and we want to reach outside of ourselves, which is great to talk to people, don't get me wrong, I think that's really helpful, but so that we're actually able to be there for ourselves and have that confidence that we're okay, rather than getting it from someone else, or that reassurance. How can we do that for ourselves?
I think with anxiety, it's important to remember that it is just pent up energy. So the energy of anxiety, and like the anxiety as an emotion, is not that different than excitement as an emotion in terms of how the body responds. It's just that one is thinking negatively and one is thinking positively. So when you're feeling anxious and you're having all this energy pent up, like you said, maybe talking to someone if you need to voice it. I know a lot of people who even will voice record to themselves, like if they just need to talk something out.
I love a bit of that. I've done that many a times.
I believe it.
Just get it all out. Just get it out without having to dump it on someone else all the time. Just talk to yourself.
Just to get it out of your headspace, or journaling, just like writing out all this stuff, because Otherwise, like we've said at the beginning, if you're bottling it up, then that energy is still staying within you, and those thoughts are still staying within you. You're not clearing and releasing them in any way.
Yeah.
So getting it out somehow, just so that you feel like a little bit more of a breath of fresh air of like, oh,
releasing.
Okay,
Yeah.
got some of that out, and then now you can, again, think more clearly.
Right. And then after we've got it out, what are some things we can do to like reassure ourselves or be there for ourselves?
Yeah, I think just being as kind to yourself as possible. So whatever that looks like for you in terms of self-care, self-love, and realizing that every time you're feeling anxious or going through something like that, that is hard on your body. It is stress on your body. So you might feel really drained. You might need a nap or like a nice hot bath with Epsom salts or something to like recharge, or maybe
snuggle up, cry, have a cuddle,
movie night,
watch a
like
Netflix.
Do something that it's not about escaping. Like you don't want to just dive into things to escape the emotions, but be kind to yourself and trust what it is that you need in that moment, because the more love and compassion you can give to yourself for feeling those things, the better you'll feel after too.
Yeah, and just remembering that it will all be okay.
Yeah,
like
and
it's all going to work out. It's natural. This is part of life.
Yeah, and it's normal. So I think, especially there may be a lot of you out there listening who have struggled with anxiety at times, and maybe you don't feel like anyone understands you, and people just say, oh, just get over it, or just be positive, it'll be fine. And like, even though their intentions
just the type
are
people
good,
you want to like punch.
like
don't tell me to do.
Yeah,
you don't get it, and people can't relate to it if you don't have anxiety.
Yeah,
you can only really understand if you've been through it.
Yeah, and so their intentions might be good, but they're really missing the mark in terms of actually understanding what you're feeling.
Yeah, or some major lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, or lack of empathy, right? Because like you said, maybe they haven't experienced it. But so maybe you don't feel like you have people to talk to who will understand, but then how can you be your biggest ally and like be that support system for yourself? What can you do to treat yourself with love and to realize that what you're going through is actually totally normal? And anxiety is usually just a symptom of something being out of alignment. So what is out of alignment right now? Like what is causing it to come up and be so strong? And then I think if you do some reflecting on that, then it helps you move through it as well. Like, I'm anxious because my job's at risk. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, well, then it's relating to security, or then it's relating to different things, or is it triggering old patterns or past struggles like we touched on one of the earlier episodes? What else is tied into this? And what can you learn from it?
I've got terrible anxiety right now, even doing this episode. I wonder if if other people can tell when you're anxious, like through this. Like I feel major anxiety right now. So for all those anxiety people out there, you know, you're not the only one. We're all in this together.
Yeah, and it's a human emotion. I think people just didn't
have a name for it.
Didn't have a name for it before, or didn't know how to talk about it. And a lot of people just assumed that was normal or kept it to themselves because they didn't know. And so we live in an age where thankfully people are talking about mental health more and realizing how important it is. And creating more of a safe space to feel like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And
that's another reason why we're doing this, is to create that safe space, because even though there are a lot of things opening up for mental health and spirituality and self-development, there still could be way more, because there's still so many people struggling with I can't say this out loud because I'll be judged, or I'm not safe to say this, or they might abandon me, or this is embarrassing, I'm the only one going through it. And this podcast is really about just showing you, like, just best to get it all out there, and don't be afraid of how it sounds. This is everything that we share, everything you go through is part of the human emotion. And the more we can just be open about it, be straight up about it, then the better we can work through it. Because how can you possibly work through something if you're not honest about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, thanks for listening, guys. Is there anything else you want to say, Cara?
Well, I think I just want to say one last thing about...
Go on then, girl. Go on then. Say that one last thing.
I'm going for it. Is that when you're feeling anxiety, maybe one last tool that could help you is attaching this meditation to your breathing. So as you breathe in, inhaling and seeing like a cleansing energy, a cleansing light coming through your body, and as you exhale, seeing a dark smoke or seeing any of the negative energy, any of the fears, the toxic stuff,
visualize getting rid of them.
So visualize yourself cleaning and exhaling to release. And that is such a powerful way to not only reground yourself through the breath, but also clear out
the shit,
that energy, that
the bad juju stuff. Get rid of it. I love that. Amazing. Okay, so we invite you all between now and next week's episode is just applying everything that we've said and the tools that Cara's shared. Apply everything. Don't miss a single thing out, otherwise you know. No, but especially the meditation. If you can just maybe practice that. I'm certainly going to get off this podcast and go and sit in bed and do exactly that, because I need to seriously address some of this anxiety going on right now.
I was going to say that. I was going to challenge you to that, Charlie, and anyone else, and especially when it comes up or before bed is perfect. Like if you struggle to fall asleep or your mind's racing with a million thoughts,
get it out.
Just do that breathing and that visualization. See yourself clearing and releasing, feeling that connection to whatever higher power you believe in, knowing that you're supported, and clearing out that negative stuff.
Go hang out with the guides. Gonna go go feel that universal support. Even if I don't always believe it, just trusting that I'm always supported, and you all are as well. And especially we all are together.
So I hope this was helpful for all of you guys, and that you try out some of these things. Make sure you keep us posted.
Exactly. Any questions, any specifics around this, or anything else for that matter, you know where we are. DM us on Instagram or write to our email address, and we would love to just continue to have conversations and coaching around all the wonderful different topics that come up for you. So thank you for listening while I have a ton of anxiety and might be annoying right now. And
it's all good.
No. And we'll see you we'll see you next week. We can't wait. Love you guys.
Bye guys.
Bye.